Greetings, guys, and welcome to another episode of CEO Chatter Live. I'm your hostess, the award-winning editor-in-chief of Swagger Magazine, Fancy. And today I have a special guest that is also a part of Profit and Secure, her virtual conference, which is an extraordinary experience designed exclusively for intentional Black business women who aspire to take their ventures to new heights and build a secure and prosperous future. So if you're attending the conference, then we're looking forward to seeing you. If not, then we may still see you in some form of fashion. You never know what we plan to do. So the conference is taking place July 11th through the 13th, which means that we kick off tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock p.m. and we will be running through 9 o'clock p.m. And I have some excellent speakers to present to you guys. I'm very excited about it. And so without further ado, let me introduce my guest. And while I'm doing so, you guys can also share in the comments where you're tuned in from, because we just love to know. So, let me do one thing, guys, because I always forget to share on my Facebook page. I would also turn my phone off. 1 minute, but you guys can still be letting us know where you're tuned in from if you're tuned in. And this also gives Rasheda a chance to share as well. All right. So my guest today is none other than Rasheda Hatchett, an award-winning nurse leader on a mission to help women thrive by prioritizing self-care, putting themselves first, and honing the power of saying no. She is the creator of Audacity To Thrive, a coaching program for women who are leading audaciously in the world. Rasheda is an experienced and engaging speaker and a 3 times best-selling author, most recently penning a self-help book titled Sis, It's Time to Thrive, A Unicorn's Guide to Loving Yourself Audaciously. So without further ado, let me bring her in. Greetings, Rasheda.
Hey, good morning. It's morning on my side. I know it's afternoon everywhere else, but it is still morning all the way on the left coast.
Oh, really? I did not realize you were on the West Coast.
Yes, I'm up in the Seattle area.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's really interesting. I had no idea. And we've talked, twice, I think, and and I had no idea. Okay. So to get right into things, well, first, how are you doing? I didn't get to ask that.
Oh, I am well. I am well. I'm so excited about all the things that are coming up and speaking for the conference. This is just going to be amazing. So everything's good.
Yeah, the conference is going to be good. I'm really excited. Like just the different topics that we have. We kind of touch on some of everything, which is just me. I always be trying to do the most. So, I'm glad that we're able to touch on everything. So I think that the guests are going to really enjoy it. So to get right into things, how would you describe your swagger? What makes Rasheda Rasheda?
Ooh, I really think it's my authenticity. I show up who I am everywhere I go. And so for me, this is who you get all the time. I'm not any different. I teach for a living. I teach nurses. I'm a nurse educator, and moving around and doing that all the time. Often I hear people go, how do you do that? How do you just be you? And I'm like, I just don't know how to be anybody else. And there have been times where I tried to tone me down, and it just doesn't work. So I think that's really what makes me is that I refuse to let my light, go under the carpet or, dim it a little bit for other people who can be a little bit I say taken aback by how bright and vibrant I am. It's just who I am. It's just a part of how I live and how I show up in the world. So for me, that's it. It's my authenticity. It's just who I am and how I show up every day.
Well, you got it easy then, sis, because that's naturally you. And for a lot of people, I know for me, like, I feel like it's very important for me to be able to be myself. That's why I chose to work for myself. That was just really essential to me. But at the same time, I still can kind of step back at times. And then also, it kind of takes a little bit more energy for me, to just kind of, yeah. So I applaud you on being able to do that. So before you were a coach and a consultant, you were in the health industry. How was that transition for you?
It was a relatively seamless transition. Being a nurse, you're interacting with people, you're with people all the time. As a nurse, you do a lot of health coaching. I coached my patients all the time on how to take better care of themselves, how they needed to do things a little differently, the small steps that they needed to make in order to create the big change in their health and managing their chronic illnesses. So it really wasn't different when I decided to move into coaching female leaders to be in a place of thriving in the world so that they could prioritize their self-care without having to step back from their careers, or if they were choosing to do something else like start their own business or something like that, supporting them in that as well. Because for me, the big thing is about what it is that they want to do, so I support them in what it is that they want to do and where they want to move in their life. So it was an easy transition because it was what I was already doing, just in a different capacity. So it made sense to me to move in that direction because I had also been doing it for other nurses and people that I had worked with in previous jobs. I coached them through how to get the things that they needed, how to get the things that they wanted, how to advocate for themselves. And so I really took that same framework that I've used for other people in other places, and I brought it into creating Audacity to Thrive.
Wow. So it sounds like then basically this it was something that you already did, but a different subject matter, you
Yeah,
know. So that makes a lot of sense. And then you also that means you have a lot of experience in it as well because you've been doing it for so long naturally.
yeah,
So, okay.
yeah.
So at what point did you notice that perfection was your problem?
Oof. I don't, it took me a long time to notice it. I had, like a lot of other people, I had claimed perfectionism as a part of my personality, kind of as a part of who I was. And I would say it all the time, like, I'm a perfectionist. And I had this like pride with it, like it was really helping me, when in fact it was doing the opposite. And I don't think until I got to the place of being like really burnt out in my job. And I was like, you know what? I can't go on like this. Something's got to give, something's got to change, there's got to be better. And I started to seek out some of that personal and professional development that I needed to figure out what was happening for me. That was the point where I realized that idea of having to be perfect was really a hindrance to my growth. I wasn't moving forward as fast as I could because I was allowing the idea of it having to be perfect, me having to be perfect, be
Mhm.
the stake that just kind of kept me held tight in the ground, rather than being able to freely move and grow the way that I wanted to. So I think it was that transition for me, probably around, I'd say around 2018, 2019, as I started to look at where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do aside from being a nurse. And I started to go, what's not serving me? And perfectionism just kept coming up. I was holding on to this gift that I had because I wanted my coaching program to be perfect. And I was like, it's not going to be perfect, right? I'm going to revamp it based on what my clients need while I'm in it. What they need, I'm going to figure those things out, and we're going to move forward in the way that they need, rather than me trying to figure it all out and have it all perfect before we get there. So for me, I think it was really that point of, I need to assess what's happening and showing up in my life, and then looking at it and going, yeah, this doesn't actually serve me. Like, this is not helping me. This is pushing me backwards.
Yeah. And actually, I'm just curious because I know that I do struggle with perfectionism a little. So I was thinking about what you said about your coaching program. Um, and, when you did just move forward with things, what was that like?
Oh, scary as all get out. Right? So when you're a person who thrives in this place of, I'm a perfectionist, and you have to dismantle that, right? You're in this place of, I have to dismantle the idea that this is going to be perfect. Perfection doesn't exist. That's an illusion, right? There is nothing perfect. Everything is just going to operate in excellence. So when you are walking in that, there's always going to be times where you second guess yourself and you're like, ooh, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do more? Should I put more? Should I ask these other questions? And having to put that on the back burner every time it comes, going, nope, I'm not going to think that way. Nope, I'm not going to allow that thought to creep in and to have me stop doing what I know I need to be doing, right? What I know is the right space for me right now. It was terrifying because the thing with perfectionism is you get that way because you're afraid of criticism, right? That's how you end
Mhm.
up in this perfectionist space, right? I grew up in a pretty critical household. We needed to be right. We needed to be perfect. It was just kind of the way that I grew up. And so that carried on. And that's one of the crux of perfectionism is really being afraid to be critiqued. You want to be right most of the time. And when you feel like you don't get it right, you're really hard on yourself. And that's the place that keeps you stuck is when the criticism comes, how it affects you internally, and then how you then talk to yourself after that. So it was terrifying.
Wow. I'm just thinking like everything that you're saying is so true. I will accept criticism, but if I can avoid it, that's my whole thing. So like I'm always trying to be have everything perfect so that I can avoid it. So yeah, you just said a mouthful with that. So I question, but I was just curious to know like at when was the first time that you said no and what was the outcome of that?
Ooh, so I didn't really learn to say no until I was in pretty deep into a nursing job that I had, and it was a position where I had a cell phone and my patients had my work cell phone number. And I had patients who were unfortunately in pretty significantly challenging health conditions as well as familial relationships. So I was dealing with a lot of single first time moms who were unfortunately dealing with a lot of trauma. Okay. And it was a real challenge for me because prior to being a nurse, I was a domestic violence advocate. So it was a real challenge for me to hear some of the things that they were going through and to not be able to be on call on the weekend when I was supposed to be off. So they would call, they would text. I would get text messages of, horrible things that were happening. And I pick up that phone and I start helping them navigate through it, even though I was off. And the phone wasn't even supposed to be on. I was supposed to turn it off on Friday and I didn't. And I got to this place of feeling like I was working all the time. And it was so painful for me because I just wanted to have time. I just wanted to be off. I just wanted, to be able to reclaim my time. But I felt like these people needed me. And I
Mhm.
think that that's probably one of the biggest things that we go through as female leaders is feeling like the people who we're charged after, whether that's our team or it's the clients that we're working with, they need us. So we need to be available. And I wasn't setting those boundaries with myself. Forget setting the boundaries with the people outside of you. I didn't set them with myself so that the people outside of me understood what the boundaries were. I was just always available. And I had to get to this place of saying, no, I have to set this boundary with me and I have to stick to it. So I will tell you, this is a strategy that I tell my clients to use, but it isn't the most aggressive strategy. It's a little passive aggressive. I turned the ringer off. Right. And so instead of actually telling people I'm not available at this time, this time, this time, that felt harsh to me. So I just turned the ringer off. And then I didn't feel obligated to answer it. And then I did the same thing with my personal cell phone. So my personal cell phone literally has not rang in years, right? A couple months ago, my phone was on and it rang, and my husband was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, how did my phone get on?" Because my phone never rings, it is always on silent. I had this obligation that I felt to answer it when it rang. And part of that is, I used to be an office manager. I was a receptionist. Answering the phone was my thing, right? It was a part of what I did. And so I just got used to this is what I have to do. And so I kind of did that passive aggressive thing. And I tell people to this day to use it. If you can't actually tell your family, quit calling me, you can't actually tell your clients, get off my phone, then just turn the ringer off. It works just the same, right? People get the hint when you don't answer. But that was my big moment of saying no and sticking to my no.
Wow. And I totally agree with that. For me, I'm more of a do not disturb person, but
Mhm.
that kind of tends to I used to feel obligated to respond all the time too, and I long ago turned my notifications off, like for social media, because then I want to, check in and see what's going on.
Mhm.
But I realized, like, just doing those, and it's so simple to do, but just doing those simple things
Yeah.
actually really helps us. It's like it's good for our mental health,
Yes.
really. So that's a good idea. So, how did you find the audacity to drop perfection?
Ooh. It was really looking at what I was tolerating. So I was going through a program where I was learning the modalities of coaching, and we had to do these exercises relatively often of like what are you tolerating? So they're called tolerations exercise. And it's something that I've now incorporated into Audacity to Thrive, because I think that we tend to not look at all of the things we're tolerating. And one of the things we had to do is we had to list like 100 things. And I was like, 100, geez, am I tolerating 100 things? It's actually, when you start doing it, you realize you tolerate a lot of stuff you shouldn't tolerate, right? And so as I started to look at what I was tolerating, how much I was tolerating, the way in which I was allowing those things to stop me from showing up, I made a decision that perfectionism, it doesn't exist, but two, it just doesn't serve me. Feeling that burn of it having to be perfect was so detrimental to my self-esteem, right? Because I wasn't moving, and I just felt like I'm not moving, I'm not doing the things that I need to. And that's how I created my signature talk around perfectionism that I'm going to talk about on Wednesday, which is really dropping perfectionism to pick up momentum, and what that means and how we unpack that, because perfectionism really does hold many of us as leaders and as entrepreneurs hostage.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. And um, I'm not certain, but I know you're connected to Fire Savvy, right?
Mhm. I know the folks that run Fire Savvy. We know each other in the social media streets. We have not yet met in person.
Okay, just because it made me think. I've attended one of their unmaster classes, and I think they even mentioned something similar about, similar to that about perfection holding us back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with that. So, how would you describe an audacious woman?
I think that she's bold. I think she is on the cutting edge of the things that are going to come. She wants to know what's next on a pretty consistent basis. But the other thing about the audacious woman is that she's comfortable in the space that she's in. She knows that her journey is her journey, and she's moving along in this race at a pace that is set for her. So she's not looking at anybody else's race. She's like, where am I at? What am I doing? And consistently just learning and wanting to know more in the lane that she's in. This woman is pretty steadfast in her belief in herself and what she believes is possible for herself, what she believes is possible in the world and all that the world has to offer her. So she's a woman who knows what's happening, but she might also be a woman who needs a little guidance in some of these areas to drop some of these things that she might be tolerating, like perfectionism, relationships that might not be serving her, relationships that she has with herself that might not be serving her the way that she once thought that they did. And so she's really on a place of self discovery. She's interested in her self care as paramount at this point in her life. She's like, look, my time that I spend with me is non negotiable. And if she's not yet there, she's ready to be there. She said, I have put everything else ahead of me. I have put everything else in front of me. And now is my time. And it's my time in a holistic way. So, one of the things that I teach in Audacity to Thrive is whole life leadership, because the way you lead in one area is the way you lead in all areas. And if you don't believe me, watch the trickle down. Okay. So I teach that because you cannot lead well in the boardroom if you're not leading yourself well, if you're not leading your home well, if you're not leading well at the other things that you do, that trickle down will happen. And one of the things about leading ourselves well is taking care of ourselves and making self care a non negotiable. And often we don't. We put everything else ahead of what we need to do to refill our cup. And it puts us in this position of having this dry cup that we're trying to give and pour from. And that will never work. It creates burnout faster than anything else. And so I talk about whole life leadership and the power of self-care, because self-care really does do the work to help beat burnout. And that's what I want women to just avoid altogether, right?
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that you're I've been, of course, waiting to see you do your presentation, but just you kind of gave me some more insight about what to expect of it as well. So this sounds really interesting. So what has been your biggest challenge on your self-care journey and how did you overcome it?
Oh, I think my biggest challenge is the same one that every other woman has, is creating the time and sticking to it. Sticking to, like, if I said I'm doing nothing today, I'm doing nothing today. And I mean that. And so when somebody calls me like, hey, do you want to go? Whatever. No. Oh, you don't? Mm-mm. Well, what are you doing today? Nothing. Well, then how come you can't go? Because I'm doing nothing. Right? Like that part of just sticking to, I made a decision that this day is going to be about me and I'm going to do whatever it is that I choose to do that's about me. Sticking to that is probably the biggest challenge that any of us have. It's so similar to being on a journey to get your health back, to, reclaim your health. And you will put so many things before going to the gym, eating the right way, cleaning up your diet, those kinds of things, because they don't affect anyone except you. And so the things that we're willing to do to ourselves that are not okay are always the things that are the hardest to break ourselves from, right? I don't do the things I'm supposed to do around my health. We feel like that doesn't really affect anybody else. I'm not hurting anybody by, not going to the gym or not eating clean. Who am I hurting? No one. But the truth is that that's not true. You are hurting yourself and all of the people around you. And I feel the same way about your self-care practices. The things that you need to do in order to refill your cup so that you can keep going, so that you fend off that stress that a lot of us deal with. And we can dig into this part later, but that constant stress that we're under, Black women are at the highest rate of heart disease in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the world. And it's because of stress. And so if we don't take the time to prioritize self-care, as much as we prioritize those business automations that we have to do, as much as we prioritize, that leadership development, whatever it is that we have to do, we prioritize self-care. If we don't take the time to do that, we are going to find ourselves burnt out and, quite frankly, chronically ill.
Yeah. And I've experienced that before, so I know what it's like. Just having a health scare due to the stress. And actually,
Yeah.
one of my former clients had a heart condition, and so I saw that statistic within the research that I was just doing because we were doing some PR around just heart health and everything, and it was really shocking. But I
Yeah.
could definitely understand, because Black women are under a lot of stress, and actually, I just saw a study about Louisiana, and it was saying that Louisiana was ranked like maybe number three as far as the one of the most stressed states. So, and I'm
Wow.
dropping Rasheda's links below so you guys can follow her. Her website is RashedaHatchettMedia.com and her
Yeah.
Instagram is Rasheda Hatchett Media. And my last question for you is about your latest book, Sis, It's Time to Thrive, A Unicorn's Guide to Loving Yourself Audaciously. Can you tell us more about
Yes.
that?
Ah, my baby, right? I really created this book for women who were in leadership that were wanting a little bit more. It really draws out a lot of what my program is about. We talk through confidence, we talk through imposter syndrome, we talk through finding and using your voice to advocate for yourself. At the end of each of the chapters, there are questions to ask yourself. There are affirmations, because I'm big on affirmations. There's affirmations at the end of each chapter, and then there's a journal prompt and space for you to write right there in the back of the book, right? I wanted people to be able to write right there in the book at the end of each chapter what your thoughts are, how you're feeling about this. Answer those questions for yourself of what comes up for you. And I really wanted women to be able to take what I had developed because of what I had gone through and to use it to get themselves to the other side. So if they couldn't, invest to work with me, at least they had the book and they could use the book in order to, help themselves move forward.
Got you. So where is the book available?
The book is available on my website at rashedahatchettmedia.com/shop. It is also available on Amazon, so you can get it at either place.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wish to share? Do you have any upcoming events or projects or anything?
Yes. So I have upcoming October 11th through the 15th in beautiful Orlando, Florida, is the Audacious Woman Leadership Retreat. This retreat seamlessly marries together leadership development and self care for the female leaders. So if you are ready to prioritize your self care, come on down. We're going to be in a luxury mansion. It will be all things luxury, spa treatments all day, all the days. There's going to be so much happening. And then, of course, some sessions, and we're going to be talking through all of the things. So financial wellness, physical wellness, and mental health. I have a mental health expert that is coming in. So this is going to be whole life leadership, just like I talk about. So I'm excited about it. It is an exclusive retreat. I can only take what I have 6 more spots, and that's it. So if you want to meet us in Orlando, Florida, head over to my website, rashedahatchettmedia.com/audacious woman retreats, and get in there.
All right. And that sounds great. That's actually my birthday, October 11th. So I'm certain your retreat is going to be really good. So,
Yes.
so thank you so much, Rashida, for joining me. And I will see you tomorrow evening. Well, I know you're presenting on Wednesday, but I hope you all will join us throughout the other day. So I'll definitely see you on Wednesday.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, y'all. So that was Rashida, and I have a second episode of CEO Chatter Live that will be coming up in just a few minutes, and I will have Darren Adams of Keep. Keep is one of the sponsors of Profit and Secure Her virtual conference, so you all can learn more about them. And also, if you are interested in the conference, we do still have a few tickets left. You guys can visit the link below. It is PNS Her Tickets, short for Profit and Secure Her, of course. Tickets, and you guys can be able to attend with us Tuesday through Thursday evening, as we will be talking all things financial wellness and growing your business, as well as, I mean, we're going to have a lot of talks about money. And I think that, of course, that's the part of the profit part. So we have some great speakers who are financial coaches. And then this event is also sponsored by Fire Savvy, which is a collective of badass women who teach you basically how to sell and how to create your, and I'll say craft your brand's message. So you guys can also check them out as well. So I look forward to seeing you all in just a minute. Peace and blessings.